All right, guys. Apparently, there's a Chinese guy called Mr. Rick Chow who shot a black kid. And today we're going to go through that entire case and see what actually happened, how me as a Chinese immigrant look at this case, how I react to it. Because quite a few of you actually reacted in our previous video regarding the verdict on Karmelo Anthony, right? Because from the cultural background that I came from, is usually life for a life, right? And I believe it's just in the American justice system. But personally, I do think it's a little bit unfair to the victim because how, one party lost a kid and then they're never able to see Austin again. And the other side, for Carmelo Anthony, still have a life ahead of him. If he does well in the prison, he can get out much earlier. Now, with that being said, in the video, there are quite a bit of comments like this saying that, is that the same energy you have for Mr. Chow? I wasn't aware of that case until I saw quite a few comments, right? Look, if you truly believe in life for a life, tell me, do you believe Rick Chow will justify shooting a child in the back while fleeing away from him? So I want to take a look at the Rick Chow case. So I asked Grok. Again, this is probably one of the most truthful AI on the market right now. Okay, so quickly go over the case. Apparently, in 2023, there's a guy called Rick Chow who he's a owner of a gas station, or his family, him, his wife, and his kids. So Rick Chow, 61-year-old convenience store gas station owner in Columbia, South Carolina, was charged with murder in May 28, 2023, shooting death of 14-year-old Cyrus. He was acquitted by a Richland County jury on June 1st, 2026, after a short trial. It's a pretty short trial. So what exactly took place? What happened was surveillance video showed that Carmack-Belton entering the store, which is Cyrus. We're just going to call him Cyrus because I'm really not very good at reading names. So Cyrus, this black teenager, entered the store off Rick Chow, and he picked out a few bottles from the cooler and then put it back, briefly placing back. So basically, take it out, put it back, take it out, put it back. Kind of suspicious. So the Rick Chow's wife, I believe, Mrs. Chow, confronted him and also asked him to put on a backpack, all that kind of stuff. You can see store staff, including Chow's wife, Alice, son Andy, confronted him, accusing him of shoplifting. He denied it, saying something like, "I don't got no water in my pocket, bro," and left calmly with his hands in his hoodie pockets. Rick Chow and his adult son, Andy, followed him out and chased him down the street, about a football field away. So quite a bit of distance that they chased this young kid, right? Cyrus. And then Cyrus actually dropped items on the ground and fell. So at least once. There wasn't, I think, conclusive evidence on how many times he actually fell, but he fell at least once. So in that process, Chow fired one shot from his 45 caliber Glock, striking the teen in the back. So Cyrus died from the gunshot wound. A loaded 9mm pistol was found near his body. Okay, so this case, if you just look at the rundown of it, it sounds really bad, right? So a young black kid, Cyrus, went to the store and he didn't steal anything. By the way, it's conclusive that he did not steal anything. But there is also clear evidence that he went to the store with no money, no cash, no credit card, basically no way of making a purchase. And he has an empty backpack and he has a gun. And there was evidence of him basically flashing the gun on his social media the night before he entered the store. So basically, there were strong evidence that he was looking to do something in the store. Now, his exact motive entering the store, nobody knew, but it's for sure not purchasing because he couldn't. He physically couldn't buy anything in that store. He didn't have any money or credit card, basically any means of purchasing. So that's what we knew, right? It looked really bad. And then, and some people, I think, even framed it as Rick Chow killed this young kid over a bottle of water. But the kid didn't steal anything. So in a way, you can say that is as bad as killing him, just basically executed him for nothing. But when you look into the case for more details, that wasn't the case. I think there are a few things that were just, again, this is unfortunate, really, really sad situation to be in. And it's really inconvenient, right, to the trial. But it's also a sad fact of life. There are a lot of brutality that happened in the United States, but a lot of it really, it's very different when you're looking at a case hindsight, because hindsight is 50-50. It's not the same thing as being in the moment, in a tense moment when you have to make a decision, like a split-second decision, and that's very different because we're all human. We're not robots. So this is what happened, right? Prosecution's view, this was unjustified killing over a false shoplifting accusation, right? Worth $4 in water. Chow chased the unarmed teen and shot him in the back as he fled. That's basically what happened. That's basically like the prosecution's view, right? No evidence showed the teen pointed the gun at anyone. Witness described the boy as frightened and running away. And I actually saw the footage. I don't know if I can pull it up to show you, but I saw the security camera footage. He was running away. The Cyrus, the young black kid, right? The defense's view, though, is a little bit different. Mr. Chow acted in defense of his son. The teen was acting nervously and strangely, had a loaded gun, confirmed by prior social media photo, and pointed at Andy during the chase. Andy backed away with his hands up. Rick fired to protect his family. Chow had a concealed carry permit. So basically, Mr. Chow, the store owner here, had a permit to carry his gun, so he could actually carry the gun. That also speak a lot of volume in the environment and neighborhood that he's in. So I did a research on his environment also. Apparently, like the neighborhood he's in, it's just really unsafe. It's plagued with teenager violence and gun violence, shoplifting, just crime, petty theft, all that kind of stuff. It's a really unsafe neighborhood. But it's also like really unfortunate that the gas station just doesn't make enough money for them to move away, right? I think any sane person, if they make enough money, they would leave. And you can also see that this is a family-owned store. The mom, the dad, the kid all work there. That means like it's not a really well-off family where if they want to move, they can just have a lot of mobility to move. So they're stuck in that store, in the environment. And then my opinion on this entire case, when I finish the whole thing, it's really just, if anyone's to blame, it's really the state, right? It's really the system. Like, why is a community plagued with so much crime and this is not being solved? And this is United States America, the first world country with a third world problem. What are the politicians doing? How soft do we have to be on crime to continue to allow this to happen? Like, how many people do have to die for the politician to do something, for you guys to stop voting for these clowns, right? Like, I don't know, the people who are in the neighborhood, this is what I was thinking. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I truly believe the entire voting system is just fraud. It's just fraudulent. Because I just don't believe we're all sheep, we're all goats, because we have our own eyes, we see what affected our lives. And if you constantly live in a neighborhood that's unsafe, dangerous, you're not going to vote that person who put you in that position, like who is just there. Or let's say he didn't put you in that position, he or she, but you voted for that person, and after 4, 8, 12 years, nothing happened. Why are you still voting for them? Unless there's some money you're getting or some benefits you're getting, like why is that person still in power? Like this community is plagued with crime. I think it's a top-down failure from the government, from the top down, right? Okay. Anyways, this is the background context. This is a young kid. You can say in this picture, he looked like a really nice kid. And then this is Rick Chow, the store owner. I would say, just a store owner, right? There's nothing standing out about Mr. Chow. So that's what happened, right? Now, I will also ask Rock, so what was the reason for the acquittal? And this is what happened, right? The jury acquitted Rick Chow of the murder primarily due to a reasonable doubt on whether he acted in lawful self-defense or defense of others. In this case, the defense of his son. So when you watch the video, I don't know if I have the video. It's let's see here. Yeah, there's a surveillance
And
camera.
good evening. Now we begin tonight with the latest in the Rick Chow murder trial, as today marks 3 years since 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack-Belton was shot and killed outside a Columbia gas station.
And today jurors heard hours of emotional testimony from witnesses while also seeing newly released body camera and store surveillance video from the day of that shooting. We want to show you one of those moments right now.
Here we go. So this is Cyrus entering the store, and that's Alice, I believe, the female store owner. That's basically what Grau was saying regarding their conversation, where Cyrus saying he didn't steal anything, and Alice was trying to see if he was stealing something. It looks suspicious. And this is other eyewitnesses. This is Andy the kid, right? And this is where they saw. You can see Cyrus walk out of the store, and then Allison notified them, hey, this guy looks suspicious. And immediately he started running. And arrested.
In this video, you see.
So basically, I want to go back to this, right? There are a few things worth noting here. Because the evidence was clear, and this is irrefutable, right? Apparently, at this point, when he is doing this, when Cyrus is doing this, like, you know, wiggling his pocket, there's a gun in there. So he was carrying a gun, and he was showing off his gun on social media the night before. The reason why he's acting suspicious, we don't know what his intention was, and I don't want to guess, right? But people can easily say it looks like this young kid was trying to show off, like how cool he is about a gun, and then he wanted to rob a convenience store. He thought it was easy because the young kid didn't know any better, and then or at least try to rob, right, a convenience store, because he didn't bring any cash of payment. So when to the store was an empty backpack. So I mean, what else can you do there, right? But I don't want to guess that, but that can be an easy speculation of a reason. Doesn't matter what the speculation is. This young kid walking into a store with a gun in his pocket. And think about using your common sense for a second. Any common sense, any common sense person, right? No matter the race, you can be black, Asian, white, doesn't matter, right? Hispanic, doesn't matter. If you're truly innocent and you're not feeling like people only run away, only flee when they know there's something, like when they're trying to hide something. Like if you're doing nothing wrong and then obviously you're also not hiding anything, right? And then you know there's an opportunity for you to, like, if somebody's gonna look trouble for you, you're gonna stand up for yourself, right? Like you didn't steal anything. You were not looking for trouble. If you're actually going to shop and they accuse you of shoplifting, you're gonna call the police and potentially win the case and make some money out of it, right? They're gonna apologize, give you a bunch of stuff. That's usually for how any innocent person act. But the question is, why was Cyrus fleeing to begin with, right? Like, think about this situation, right? Here, they were saying that, hey, he might be stealing stuff, but the young kid wasn't hearing it. At this point, what I suspected is he walked in, he originally planned to do something, but he didn't expect the store to have like all the family members there, right? And then they immediately confronted him. And as a 14-year-old young kid, he was frightened because like, oh, I know, forget about this plan. I'm just gonna leave. That's basically what he thought. And when he upon walking away, these two started chasing him, yelling at him, yo, what are you doing? So he started running away. But again, like the thing is, why did you need to run away, right? If you knew you were innocent. The reason is clear, is he was hiding a weapon in the pocket, which is illegal. Like he was not allowed to hold a weapon, right, in South Carolina under the age of 14. Like it's illegal for him to do that. So he was hiding that, even though it had nothing to do with the store, but he was doing something illegal and he didn't want these guys to find out. Basically, a kid doing something, make a mistake and didn't want the adults to find out. That's the idea of it, right? So that's what the surveillance camera showed. And that's basically what the case is. And what happened was, because this kid had a gun in his pocket, it complicated the whole case. When Rick Chow and his son Andy chased him, and the defense jury, I will play a little, because I spent hours on this. It's actually quite, interesting case. You will listen to the closing statement from the defense attorney. It's such an epic statement, right? Because he laid out everything very fascinatingly, and it's also very truthful in a way, right? As truthful as you can get, that which created reasonable doubt in the jury, and which eventually acquitted Mr. Chow, right? So look at this, the reason why he was acquitted, right? Andy Chow's testimony about the gun threat. Andy Chow testified in details that Cyrus pointed a loaded 9mm pistol directly at him during the chase. He described seeing the barrel, backing away with hands up, and yelling, "He's got a gun," to his father. This was only direct eyewitness account from the Chow family claiming an active threat. Defense attorney emphasized Andy and Rick give consistent accounts with no time to coordinate a false story. And prosecutors contacted with multiple independent eyewitnesses who said they never saw the team point or brandish a gun. He appeared to be running away scared, and the gun likely fell out when he tripped. However, the jury apparently found enough doubt on the pivotal fact, right? On this pivotal fact. Now, the evidence here, because there are not enough cameras, security camera, to show exactly what happened at the point of the shooting, right? The shootout. What we do know, however, is the jury had sufficient reason to believe there is reasonable doubt that this is not just some execution. It's actually self-defense or defense of others. So here's the contributing facts, right? Consistent family testimony that defense focused on full story versus prosecution's emphasis on emotion. Prior incident involving Chow were excluded from the evidence, other kind of stuff. By the way, then I asked the composition of the jury, because in the previous case of Karmelo Anthony, there's not a black person in there, and there's reason for that too, right? By the way, you can go back and research exactly why there's no black juror. There could have been black juror, but eventually, the black juror kind of gave up by not filling the form because he, I think I don't know the exact words, but basically the black juror stated that he cannot be unbiased towards black people in the final judgment, and that's basically the final idea of it. But in this case, okay, remember this is an Asian defendant, because in the same logic where if a black person's on, sitting in the defendant's seat and you want a black juror to be represented in the jury, makes sense, right? In my opinion, it makes sense. Look at this composition for this case. There's an Asian guy now in the defendant's seat, but there's not an Asian guy in the jury, right? There's 3 black men, 2 black women, 3 white women, 2 white men, and 2 men of other backgrounds, listed unknown, possibly including Latino and other ethnicities. But there's no Asians in there, right? There's no one, quote unquote, representing Mr. Chow. And this jury can be as unbiased as you can get. In fact, it's probably more biased towards black community if you believe, a black person on the jury will all of a sudden make the jury, so much more, I would say, fair, right? To represent a, black defendant. In this case, there's no Asian in here. It's just black person, and there's a black kid getting shot, and then there are 5 black jurors on the seat. So in a way, it should be more advantageous towards Cyrus. But even then, the jury reached a unanimous decision to acquit Mr. Chow. And then, again, I will show you the reason why after you listen to the closing statement, because it's such a masterclass of, I was like, dude, I watched the whole 30 minutes of it. He is such a good lawyer. And by the way, that lawyer is also black, right? But he is such a good lawyer. It's like, if anything, if you were looking to find a defense lawyer, like, I would go for him, right? That guy just goated. I was trying to find the videos from because apparently there's a statement from the black juror, and I couldn't find it. I looked up online as well. It's not just asking Grok, right? By the way, I also asked, why is Rick Chow so sensitive to shoplifting threats? What type of neighborhood is store located in? And this is the response, right? Rick Chow's heightened sensitivity to shoplifting stemmed from the years of repeated theft, robberies, assault, and other crimes in his family-owned Express Mart Shell station. So Richland County deputies responded to hundreds of calls for services at Park Lane Road location over the 5 years before the 2023 incident. This including shoplifting, assaults, blah, 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 right? Chow and his family implemented aggressive anti-shoplifting measures, including a prominent wall of shame. Again, it's what I see, just a family, a small middle-class family running a gas station, a small business that's enough for the family to scrape by, but not enough for them to relocate, because it's not multi-million-dollar businesses or whatnot. But yeah, he had a history of defending his store. 2015, Chow fired 6 shots at a woman's car after a shoplifting dispute. 2018, Chow confronted a man who stole over cleaners. The men attacked him. Chow shot the suspect in the leg. Again, rule of self-defense. So basically, there are a bunch of incidents of people just trying to steal stuff from the store. It's not the first time. So he's not in the most peaceful neighborhood, and this is the most peaceful kid who just came in. That's not the background, right? When you put all of that into consideration, you understand why they're so sensitive about chasing the kid, even though eventually the final evidence found out that the kid didn't steal nothing, right? He just went in, he was tampering with the water, he didn't steal anything, he just walked away. But why, did they end up chasing him? Because it looked like he was stealing something. He had stuff in the pocket, they didn't know what it was. Eventually they found out it was a loaded gun. By the way, the handgun was loaded, right? 9mm handgun, Glock. And it was loaded, but they didn't know, right? Anyone in the store, nobody knew. The 14-year-old had a gun in the pocket, but that was final evidence. So, which is really, really scary. Imagine they actually had an altercation. The kid just like, that's enough. It took out his gun. Then we have a completely different story there, right? It could be more tragic. But it's already tragic that a 14-year-old lost his life. So this is, was Cyrus going to shop in Chow's store? The answer is also, by the way, this is just more stuff for you to read, more background, right? No, there's no evidence that Cyrus intended to purchase anything or was legitimately shopping the store. Surveillance video from multiple angles inside the Mart Shell station shows that following sequence. He entered the store, he walked to the water cooler, removed 4 bottles of water, and then briefly held and placed them in his near pocket or backpack area. After a pause, he methodically put all 4 bottles back into the cooler. I think the whole thing, if you think about it, is just like a young kid. He was thinking, he was thinking about how he's going to do it. Is he going to do it? He's basically hesitating about whether he's going to execute his quote-unquote game plan. Now, again, I don't know what his game plan is, but it's for sure not shopping, as I mentioned multiple times, right? So he closed the cooler, walked towards the front of the store. Store staff, they had a confrontation, and, Cyrus said, I don't have no water in my pocket, bro. Shook out his pocket to show he had nothing. But again, his hand is always in the pocket, as you saw from the surveillance video. And then go back, right? This is what it was. This is the confrontation. His hand is always in the pocket. You know what's in it, but he was, playing with the stuff in the store. So it looks suspicious, and they don't know what he stole. That's why Alice was saying, probably yelled to his husband and, son that, hey, this guy may be stealing something. I don't know what exactly she yelled, and that triggered the alarm from the father and the son. But Cyrus left the store calmly without buying anything or interacting further at the register. No money was found on him, and no merchandise was missing, right? Again, he didn't steal anything, but he wasn't there to shop, right? Because there's no money found on him. That's a key evidence, because this evidence showed that he wasn't there with good intentions, By the way, I also asked who is the defense attorney. This is the defense attorney, by the way, this guy. Sean Kent delivered a defense closing argument. This is the best thing I've ever watched, and we can watch it a little bit, right? This is a defense closing statement. It's 30 minutes. I don't know. I'm gonna play the whole thing. For those who don't want to watch the whole thing, you can skip this part if you already watched it. But it's such a good closing statement. So here we go.
Growing up and watching shows with my father, and I'm old enough to date myself a little bit, that we would actually listen to radio shows. And one of the radio shows that we would listen to quite often is a guy named Paul Harvey. And what he would do is he would tell stories. And in telling stories, what he would do is tell a story that he thought that everybody actually knew. He would tell a story, and he would give details of a story that he thought that everybody actually knew already. And he would tell it, and he would tell it in his interesting way, but what he would do is intentionally leave out parts of the story so that people would be a little confused, because they'd heard the part of the story that they thought that they knew, but he would leave parts out. And then he would take this huge pause after he was done, and everybody think it was over, and then he would say this famous line. He would say, and now it's time for the rest of the story. And then he would spend the rest of the show telling the listener the rest of the story that they did not know. He would do this because he understood people. He understood that we are a generation of people who simply listen to headlines, listen to flashy things, and don't hear the rest of the story. He understood that if he could tell just small parts of the story in the way that people thought that they understood them and didn't hear the rest of the story, then they would believe things one certain way. And the way that he did it was fascinating. It was interesting. People started to understand that that's the way we have to start listening. Because if we only hear part of the story, then we can never get to the truth. And so as we sit here and get ready for our closing argument, all we're going to do now is tell you the rest of the story. I will tell you.
By the way, this is so good so far. Just the way he speaks, like the pacing and everything is just, this guy, more than the case itself. I'm such a big fan of this guy, right? Like Sean Kent, right? I mean, I don't think there isn't any other closing statement that I've ever listened to, for whatever purposes, right? For entertainment, for just listening to cases, or trying to study English. I've never listened to another lawyer as eloquent, as professional, as good of a storyteller as Mr. Kent. Like, this guy is the GOAT, right? He's so good.
Wholeheartedly, and this might come across as a shock, I agree with some of the stuff that the state of South Carolina said. When they got done with their closing argument, folks next to me said, do you want to take that dollar down? And I said, no. Because let me tell you with unabashed honesty, they are 1,000% right about the following statement. If Rick Chow executed a human being over a $1 bottle of water, enjoy hell. Let's make that clear. If Rick Chow shot a man in the back stealing $1 bottle of water from his store, you do what you will. Because there's nothing to justify this back and forth. Was he right? Was he wrong? It doesn't matter. Taking a human life over a bottle of water is absolutely ridiculous. It is wrong under any way that you could possibly look at it. And that's why the state has gone out of their way to put this $1 bottle of water up, to put this picture up, because they want you to believe that this is what this case is about. The rest of the story. It has nothing to do with this water. It doesn't. Because if that was what it was about, this wouldn't be a complicated case. As we sit in front of you, the things that we have to talk about is we have to break down everything that we have watched in this case. And we need to break down what the state of South Carolina has presented to you. And as we break it down, we can break it down inside of 3 classifications of what they've put on the scene. They put on what they call eyewitnesses. They put on investigators. And they put on experts. You remember? Those are the 3 things that they have given us. So first, let's talk about the eyewitnesses. And the reason I want to talk about the eyewitnesses first is, remember, and I wrote down a quote that the state said, cameras don't lie. For 17 seconds, you could have played the camera. For 17 minutes, you could have played these cameras. If you remember, these witnesses got on the stand, they sat in front of you, and I asked them questions. They looked directly at you. They were talking about what they remembered. They were talking about their memories and how important that is. And then I started asking them questions from right there. You remember? I said, no, I'm not trying to be rude, but I remember you talking to 911. Do you remember that? Yeah. And you said something different to the 911 tape that you're saying right here today. I asked another person, isn't it true that we don't interview witnesses together because they can get their stories together and their brains could get something that didn't really happen? Yeah. And that's on video, correct? Cameras don't lie. And they called 911, and in the 911 call, they said they didn't see anything, correct? Cameras don't lie. But don't you remember, and I asked one of the witnesses, isn't it true that you told them something and they said that was completely impossible? Well, yeah. And then they've met with you, they've talked to you, they've interviewed you and put you on the stand and you told something different. Cameras don't lie. So why are we sitting here and not watching those videos? Why didn't the state give you the 911 calls? Why didn't they give you the videos? Why didn't they give you the information? If cameras don't lie.
By the way, this is where back in the, if you remember what we mentioned earlier about Grok, saying that why was Mr. Chow acquitted? This is partially the reason, right? Because the state didn't offer sufficient evidence. And then the evidence they picked out is part of the story, as Mr. Ken would say. And that's obviously not good, right? Especially when you're in front of a master like this who, you know, just gonna call you out like that.
The rest of the story. I talked to one of the investigators and officers as he took the stand. Remember, we asked him, what is important as an investigator? It's important to get the facts, it is important to get the information, it's important to get the evidence as close to the incident as possible. So we can do what? Remember the question I asked him? So we can give all the information to the jury. The rest of the story. Because what we don't want to do is subject and put our emotions in there, our personal beliefs, our subjective decisions. That's what's happened. The rest of the story. But for some reason, the state of South Carolina doesn't want to give it to you. One of the witnesses took the stand, if you remember correctly, Detective English took the stand. You remember? One of the first ones they put on. And they put the videos up on all of these screens, all this technology that the state of South Carolina has. And they put up all of it. And one of the clips they put up was of Rick Chow's statement. You remember? And they played it, and it said, my son saw, I didn't initially see my son that he had a gun, so when I looked at his hand, and then what did that officer do? He just walked away. We knew there was a second part of the video. Cameras don't lie. It would have taken how long was the quote? 17 seconds to play it. Cameras don't lie. And what was the next question from the state of South Carolina? Isn't it true he didn't tell you on that scene blank? Cameras don't lie. So we literally had to make sure you knew the rest of the story. And what did we do to tell you the rest of the story? We brought that other officer on to tell the rest of the story. And you remember, it went right together. The rest of that statement My son saw, I didn't see it initially, my son alerted me that he had a gun. So when I'm gonna go talk to his son, that's when he walked away, and then the statement kept going. Look at his hand, he actually had a handgun in his hand. The rest of the story. He got up running, then my son yelled, he's got a gun. So when I watched, there was a gun in his hand. That would be some important information for the state of South Carolina to tell you. But they need it to be about $1. They need to scare you. They need to make you afraid. They made you think the great Rick Chow, this evil human being over here, killed a man over $1. And that is disgusting, that is awful, that is abhorrent, but that's not what happened.
Absolutely.
The rest of the story. We don't want to tell you the rest of the story because if you hear it, then you get to make an intelligent decision, and we don't want you to make an intelligent decision. We don't want you to hear the 911 calls. We don't want you to watch the videos. We don't want you to hear what Rick said at that moment, at that time, without a lawyer, without anyone telling him what to say or do. We had to play those for you. The rest of the story. And as we get in there and we listen to this and we go through all of this information, it becomes incredibly important. We then had investigators take the stand. You remember the questions I asked of the investigators and why they were so important. The state of South Carolina, for you to make a decision, has come in front of you and said, with witnesses on the stand, guns aren't that bad. 14-year-old kids have guns all the time.
By the way, there are a bunch of other evidence. I watched a lot of it, right? His interaction with some eyewitnesses, and then it's such a sad thing. That's why when I give my take, again, I think it's such an unfortunate, sad story that Cyrus died in this scenario, but it's ultimately, it really is an unfortunate case. Like, because we were not in that moment, right? Andy and his father both went to chase Cyrus, and then their statement, when they actually talked to the police, investigation went through, everything aligned perfectly, even though they don't have time to talk to each other because this thing happened. Remember, at this point, Chow had been in prison for 3 years already. He was already in prison, so before this trial, and then so he got acquitted through this trial and he got out. So after this whole thing, you will know that the biggest person to blame, the biggest perpetrator is the state. Is actually just the whatever is happening, right? Whatever is the DOJ, Department of Justice of a local state, or like, I don't know what the police is doing. I don't know what like Attorney General is doing. I don't know any of those people are doing in the state. It's such an unfortunate case that a 14-year-old kid has access to a gun. That's number one. Number two, is somehow cool to flash your gun, to show off a gun. And it's also even cooler to now be a gangster, to use a gun to do something. What is happening to American teens? Like, it's a failure of education. Maybe you can say it's from the family aspect. I don't know, right? But my kid, or any of the Asian kid that we know, not in America, American Asian kid are actually very assimilated into American culture, I think. But if you're talking about like from an Asian immigrant perspective, a Chinese immigrant perspective, you would never see an Asian kid have this type of weapon at home. Just never. They don't even know where it is because family won't allow them. The kids were educated on, basic action to consequences, right? Your action results in some consequences. Certain consequences you can you can correct. Certain consequences you cannot correct. For example, in this case, it's a mistake that you cannot correct anymore, but you still have to pay for them because it's a consequence of your action, right? We could say this accident, this tragedy could have gone many different ways, but it just went in a multi-universe maybe, right? But in our universe, it just happened in this very, very sad direction. Whose fault is it? After you listen, you will understand. Like, nobody will shoot a black kid for over $1 bottle. But the case is dynamic, changes all the time, and we don't know. Obviously, we're not there. We didn't see exactly what happened. Is there a possibility of what they were saying just happened to align with each other and they just both lied? There is. I'm not going to say there's, 100. I don't say 100% at all, right? But the chances are too small, and you will hear from the closing statement as well. And you just use your common sense to understand the situation. When they chased, they saw a kid who fell, and then when he fell, a gun fell out of his pocket. Like he's about to pick up the gun on the ground, the son saw it, backed off, right? And then when he's backing off, he was yelling, he has a gun, he has a gun. So if what you're hiding, think about the kid. He ran away because he has a gun in his pocket, right? If the gun fell on the ground, he's going to try to pick it up and run away with it. He's not going to let you have the gun. That's a common sense action anyone would take. Because if you're the kid, you would do the same. Because that's your guilt. That's something you're trying to hide. That's the only reason you're running away, knowing that you didn't steal anything, right? Because he has a gun in his pocket. He didn't want that to be found out. And the moment he picked up the gun, what does that tell the father? Now put your feet in the father's perspective, in Mr. Chow's shoes, right? What would you have done? Your son is next to this person who just picked up a gun, loaded a gun from the ground. He doesn't know if it's loaded or not, but it doesn't matter. He picked up a gun from the ground. What do you think you would do if you were the father? Right? That's the reasonable doubt that's created for all the jurors, including, do mind you, there are 5 black jurors in this jury and 5 white people and then 2 other ethnicities. Not a single Asian was in there. And they still acquitted Mr. Chow.
And they had witnesses literally with their hands on the Bible looking at you, talking about, guns are prevalent, it's not that big of a deal. That was the testimony. I didn't make that up. That was the testimony that they submitted.
Yeah,
Do I think they believe any part of that? Not a line of that. But they have emotion. They're upset. And they want you to believe it's about a bottle of water. It's not the rest of the story. And then there was an expert who took the stand. You remember? I asked her a very directly question. I had her sit right here. She stood in front of you as if she was Rick Chow. And I showed her what we said Mr. Belton could have been doing. And what did she say? Yeah, that's possible. The rest of the story. She described the bullet path. Back to front, right to left, slightly upward. The rest of the story. We got to avoid all of that because that changes our narrative. So now we go into what they did present. Now let's talk about the part of the case that we're all wondering about, the thing that everybody's there, and if it's in your gut, it should be in everybody's gut. And they spent their entire case. Their case was a day and a half, and most of it they spent it on one part. The chase. The chase. The chase. They shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have done it. You remember one of the witnesses, the investigator, got on the stand, and I had to ask him the question, is there anything illegal about that? No, sir.
By the way, before you continue, I absolutely agree. They should have chased, right? The kid went out. But the thing is, you just have to look at the scenario. That's why I emphasize the background of this story. Like, they have been plagued with, theft, petty theft stuff that's happened in the past. Their nerves, it's just like, obviously were tense about this type of scenario. Here comes a black kid who looked very suspicious, wasn't buying anything, playing with item, and then walked out. I mean, you are the store owner in that situation, right? Obviously, it's really sad. We know now, again, hindsight is 50-50, that they shouldn't have chased. But think about a situation of them. Put yourself in their shoes. The end thing, what ended up happening is, sadly, they did chase, right? And the shooting happened not as a result of, I wouldn't say, I want to make sure my English is correct here, right? It's in sequence to the chase, right? It's after the chase. The chase didn't cause it, the chase, and then Cyrus fell, the gun fell on the ground, that's what results in the shooting. But it wasn't because the water bottle, right? He didn't actually, Rick Chow didn't execute this young kid because he stole a water bottle. It's just during that chase, he was worried about his son's life. And it was pretty clear, as you can see here.
But that's what they're talking about. Well, common sense. We don't want you to do it. But it's not illegal. That's an important distinction to know. This is a store. The testimony was they've owned it for 11 years. Margins are small. You've seen the wall of shame. People have shoplifted, people have stolen. Chased them. I've been stolen from. I chased the people to Georgia, flat out. It's their property. They're emotional about it. And that's why he ran after it. The question isn't, do you think it's right? The question is it legal? And then you go to the second part of it, is it legal? If it was illegal, don't you remember Andy Chow sat up there on the stand? And Mr. Scott got right in his face, and he was yelling at him, and he was going angry with him, and he was saying everything to him. But the one thing he didn't say to him is, and you have been charged with following this young man out of the store. And you are criminally liable for following this young man out of the store. Because he's not. He's not liable. He's not criminally liable. He has not been charged. And he did not do anything wrong. But when you Monday morning quarterback and come back and look at the situation and say, well, why? You know what? They could have done this. They could have done this. They could have done this. Because that's what the state's case is. Think about it. How many times did you hear throughout the course of this trial the great state of South Carolina say the following sentence? They could have done this. 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 They don't have evidence to offer, but they have fear, passion, emotion, and they want to get that out of you. They want that fear, passion, and emotion, and for you to ignore the law. We do not get to take the law the way that we want it to be. We take the law the way that it is. Let me tell you that again. We don't get to take the way that we want it to be. The solicitor can't say, well, I want it to be illegal for a shopkeeper to go out of the store. Shopkeepers should not be able to follow somebody. That's what I want. Andy, that's what I want. That's not the law. And then there's one last part that he, for some reason, has ignored. Let's say one of you, just one of you for argument's sake, are sitting back there and you say, you know what? I think they are at fault in bringing on the difficulty. It may not be legal, it may not be illegal, but I just don't like the fact that they follow him for 130 yards. I do not like the 130 yards. I do not like the 130 yards. Well, the judge is going to charge you on something on the law, and it's called withdrawal. Let me explain that concept to you. Let's say one of you start a fight. Let's say I start a fight with Mr. Scott. And let's say I go up to him and I say, I'm going to get you. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to hurt you. And I start the fight and I come at him. And I'm about to hurt him. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. And I turn around and I'm like, I'm over this. And Mr. Scott brings a knife and comes out. Well, according to their theory, I got to let him stab me. According to their theory, I got to let him hurt me, even though that I have withdrawn. Well, that is the law of withdrawal. If an individual says, if they withdraw by words or actions, their right to self-defense is back on the line. The rest of the story. And don't take my word for it, the judge is going to instruct you on the law, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about. So when we talk about the chase, when we talk about why did they run out of the store, when we talk about they shouldn't have gone out of the store, as I've told you, you legally have a right. The officer, their own witnesses told you, they legally have a right. This officer with 25 years of experience, dealt with shopping, dealt with this, and says, we prefer you not, common sense. But then there's a last part of that wasn't on their little pretty board, the right to withdraw. When Andy Chow testified, when he told you what happened.
Andy the son.
He said, I was following him. I was running after him. He fell. When he got up, he had this gun. And then I went this way. And as his hands were up, remember I asked him directly, the gun was still pointed at you? Yes, sir. You were looking directly at the barrel? Yes, sir. And then what did you hear? I said to my dad, he's got a gun. He's got a gun. And then what did he say his dad said? Drop it. Stop. Drop it. No. There's not more withdrawal than that. When he's yelling, stop it, drop, no. That's a withdrawal. That's saying, look, man, you got it. You got the gun. I'm good. They love to say that everything could have stopped. He could have put the gun down. But we have to ignore that because that's not part of their story.
Dude, I wonder what the prosecutor's family, I wonder, what Cyrus' family is going through when they're listening to this. Because they're also in the court. I mean, when you listen to something as convincing as this, like, your kid died. You feel horrible. And you listen to this. Everything that goes through your head is just, like, the emotion is so complicated. Like, what can you say? It's knowing that your kid made a mistake and then he suffered the severe, the most fatal consequences of that mistake. And then this guy's laying it out very logically, step by step, what mistake the kid has made and what consequence he suffered right in front of the family. This must be torturing, for the family, to be honest. This is so sad.
We cannot tell that part of the story because it's not necessary. And when we tell this story, you might look at me and say, oh, Mr. Kent, that's some creative lawyering. No. That's why we played the 911 tape. And in the 911 tape you heard. That's why we played Andy Chow's interviews. Didn't hide it. What do you say? Takes only 17 seconds. What was the other quote? Better than any eyewitness ever could would have been a video. That's what the state said. Better than any eyewitness ever could. So why wouldn't he play them? Because it would have been better than any eyewitness ever could. Now let's talk about the fact we talked about the store and the things that happen inside of the store. And there might be questions, why did you guys keep bringing these things up? If you remember, I had the officer on the stand. Great officer, great investigator, great person. But I had him on the stand, and one, I was talking about firearms and 14-year-olds, and he went back and forth because I don't think they wanted to admit that this is a problem. But the thing that was the most important is I asked him about suspicious behavior. Did something look weird to you when you went back? And he didn't want to admit it. But use your own common sense on that. I asked him the direct question, looking back through your investigation, as you have gone through and looked at the full file and looked at everything now, do you find it weird, odd, suspicious that a young man would go into a gas station without any money, with an empty book bag, bullet in the chamber, and then was looking like he was taking stuff off of the counter? I don't find that suspicious. I find that answer suspicious.
That's
the
super
reason
suspicious.
we brought this up is not to suggest I don't know what Cyrus was doing. I don't. But use your common sense and ask yourself, that does seem strange. And the reason we bring that up is that would explain why Andy, who was sitting at the front counter, looking back, is watching this and going, he's acting strange. He's acting weird. He's putting water back up, water back up, water back up. It looked weird to me. And then he came up to the counter with his hands in his hoodie, and there looked to be something heavy in there. I didn't know what it was, and so I asked him, and he did this, and it looked like there was something heavy in there. It was the gun!
Yeah, that's part of the video.
Did Andy know it was the gun? Absolutely not. But you can understand why Andy would have said there's something strange going on. His behavior, something in the pocket, going weird with the water, that's what was strange. So that is to explain why Andy made the unilateral decision that there was something strange going on here. And then Andy made the decision to follow him out of the store, chase him, run after him, whatever you want to call it, but he made that decision based upon a reasonable belief of what anybody would have thought something strange here.
Dude, this is a go-to lawyer. The way he explained it is 10 times better than how I could have explained it.
Again, about the suspicious behavior. That 24 hours, less than 24 hours before he came into the store, he posted this on his social media.
Oh, this is the picture I was talking about, by the way. Like, this is the sus picture, Like, he posted this less than 24 hours before the incident. I mean, I don't know what culture this gotta stop, right? To show this from where I came from, half my life in China, where I came from, you go to jail directly, right? This is a ticket to jail. You feel bored at sitting outside of jail or going to class. You want to take a trip to somewhere you've never been before. Do this, right? Hold a toy handgun in your hand. Doesn't matter. Do that. You got your ticket to it. Next day, not next day, probably the same day, right? That's literally what it is. Why is a 14-year-old doing this? Why is a 14-year-old in the after class schools, like studying STEM? This is something I want to talk about, which is stuff that I touched up on in Karmelo Anthony's case. There's a broader cultural issue, that a lot of people just don't want to admit, but it's a huge issue in America. And this doesn't just plague the black community, although it's pretty severe. It does plague the entire American youth, teenager age, or just a kids community. And it just, the entire society is we don't want to. We're too afraid to discipline our kids. We're soft. We're worried about if I discipline them, right, with physical threat of harm or whatnot, or harsh words, the kids might feel bad. This is this is the result of it, right? This is the grand result of the experiment. Let's be soft. Let's not discipline our kids.
Do you remember? I asked him about it. And not only was it this was a clip from a video in which he was pointing a gun at a screen with a laser and a flashing light on his Instagram story. You put all that together, you can explain that someone's behavior would have been a little strange. And he would have had that firearm with the light on it. It makes sense. And so that explains why Andy, and don't forget, when the officer was talking and asking questions and he went back to the back to look at that video surveillance that they keep talking about. Do you remember how many times? He's like, I had to look at it 2-3 times. I had to zoom in on it. He had the technology to see what was taken. Andy had one time. And from his vantage point, something was going on. And so he followed him out the store. He ran after the store, whatever you want to call it. The rest of the story. And then Andy testified that he threw stuff out of his pocket. You remember Mr. Scott said, you did not testify to that. I had to show 4 different times where Andy said he was throwing something out of his pockets. 4. And so he went after him. He followed him. He chased him. He's going after him the entire way. And they're right, he fell. He fell hard. And now they're saying, well, he would have naturally picked up his gun. That's why this is important. He's running. Or let's put it this way, let's try 2. 1, he's running and it's in his pouch. He falls. The light goes off, but the gun stays in the pouch, I guess. Or the gun comes out, I guess. I don't know. But he picks it up. And that's what they just testified to. He picked it up. The judge is going to tell you something else about defense of others. You have the right to act on appearances. And you have the right to be wrong. He's going to tell you that. They've just told you. He was running, he fell down, and he picked up a firearm. All this stuff, all this back and forth, he 100%, from the state's mouth, he picked up that firearm.
So good.
You have a right to be wrong. You have a right to act on appearances.
By the way, he's holding a gun like that to create an image in the juror's head about what Andy could have possibly seen for him to back away and yell at his father and said he has a gun. Like, this guy is such a master at delivery. Like the delivery of this is just, there's no possible way this is rehearsed, because he's just that good. Because this is a closing statement. The whole entire course of, the entire, I would say debate, right? Entire court have been running for I don't know how long, right? He came in, they've been debating, they've been talking, they've been doing cross-examination, and then he has a closing argument, and this just pulled out of his head. Like, what a goat, what a god.
And that's
bro.
what the judge is going to tell you, the
next
law.
level.
And that's from the state. I want you to think about that again.
He's using the state's words against them too.
Gets up. Medical examiner. Shot, back, angle, pointed. Right to act on appearances. Rest of the story. Or take it another situation. What makes sense? Maybe the light's on the fire. And then as he's running, when he falls, that's when it comes off. We don't know. Because the burden of proof is on the state to prove what happened in that situation. And they've just admitted the one thing we know for a fact is he picked up the firearm. That's from them, not from me. That was their admission. And then as he picks up the firearm, then we have to go with Andy's testimony. And he's right. If you don't believe what Andy says, if you think Andy is 100% a liar, you can stop right now. Andy's lying. He made it up. This is completely not true. The gun was never pointed at him. He never saw this silver barrel that he only would have seen after he saw Discovery. He never saw it. And then let's take that one step further. Not only that you must believe that he is a liar, you must believe that Rick Chow is the most creative, smartest person in the history of the world. He is clairvoyant, if you will. Let's give him an Oscar. Rick Chow was able to decide, you know what, I'm going to kill this boy. I need to figure out when he's going to come into the store, when he's going to have a gun, when it's going to be in his pouch. I need to make sure that Andy sees it. And then I need to make sure Andy follows him for the directions. So I need to make sure Andy calls 911 and says exactly what I want him to say. I need to make sure Andy says the exact thing that I'm going to say at the exact time. Because that's what it would be necessary to believe the state of South Carolina's case today. That Rick Chow set all this up in motion to execute a shoplifter. The people he decides, needs, has to help him make a living. It doesn't make any sense. And if we take this one step further from the state's theory, Rick Chow is so pissed off, so damn angry about this shoplifter, hates him so much that he executes him.
My stupid earbuds died.
Why not shoot him when he gets out of the store? Gun's already on his hip. Why not walk out of the store? Shoplifter, $1, he stole, shot. Shoplifter, 10 yards, shot. Shoplifter, 20 yards, shot. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. Why wait 130?
This is so true, by the way. Like, if anything, if you think about if this guy just cold-blooded and he just want to shoot this black kid, like, won't you just shoot him at the store? It's much better self-defense story, right? Because you can say that, oh, you saw the gun in his pocket, all kind of stuff you can make up, right? Like, and also you're in a much more advantageous position because you're in your own territory. Why wait when that far in the distance and then shoot him? The whole thing about like shooting some kid for a $1 bottle, $4 water bottle is just absurd. Because that's not what happened, right? That's why this guy is such a master, because he pivoted the prosecutor's story of pinning Rick Chow as this cold-blooded murderer who just want to execute a black kid over a bottle of water to the actual story, which is a chase, and the situation have developed into a much more complicated situation because the kid actually had a gun that they didn't know, and the gun fell out of the pocket. And when he picked up the gun, it looked to Andy at least like his life is in danger, right? So he backed away, as you know, Mr. Kent was saying, this is called a withdrawal. So I don't want to chase anymore. And he tells his father that this guy has a gun. That's when the accident happened. And that's what makes this much more reasonable as a self-defense. That's also why the jury voted unanimously to be self-defense after a very short verdict, a very short thinking process.
Unless something changed. What changed was somebody pulling a gun and pointing it directly at his son. That's what changed. If he wanted to execute Cyrus, he could have done it right outside of that store. But we have to ignore that because that would be part of the rest of the story. Use your common sense and listen to the evidence, but listen to the witnesses and listen to what they have told you. Murder, as the state has told you, is the intentional killing of another human being with malice aforethought, without self-defense. We have just showed you self-defense and defense of others. The state has melded a little bit of those theories together, but you need to make sure that you understand. One, without fault and bringing on the difficulty. Again, I've explained to you that you have a legal right to follow somebody. Whether they like what the law is, that's what it is. And as you're going through that, then you have to talk about imminent danger. And this is from the eyes of Andy. And they're trying to mix the two of the things together, but it's under the eyes of Andy at this point. As Andy, does he have a fear of imminent danger? Was a gun pointed at Andy? Would Andy, who had withdrawn from the conflict, you got it, I'm over this, no. Would Andy have had a right to point the firearm and save his own life? Reasonable person. A reasonable person in the same situation, what would they have done? And we can take that two ways if we want to argue the state's theory. Way one, Andy, gun pointed at you. Would he have had a right, as he rescinds, remember that knife in the back situation? Andy would have had a right to fire to save his own life. But more importantly, the reasonable person's situation, Rick Chow would have had a right, and did have a right, to save his son. The strongest evidence that was given in entire this case is when the officer got on the stand and I asked him that question. And I said, have you ever fired your firearm? No. Have you had a firearm pointed at you? Yes. I didn't fire. What if someone was pointed at your loved one? Yeah. I asked that same officer the situation when officers are chasing somebody and you chase them incorrectly. Remember we asked him that question. You chase somebody incorrectly, what happens? We chase them incorrectly, it does happen. And what would happen if that individual pointed a firearm at you? Remember the example he gave? If someone pointed a firearm as I'm chasing them incorrectly, well, I would tell, and they turned around and pointed a firearm at me, I would tell them, stop, drop it. And if they did not drop it, I would fire.
By the way, it's such a strong point, right? If a gun is pointed at you, sometimes would you act in self-defense? I mean, do you even dare to act in self-defense, right? It's kind of hard. But if sun's pointed at your loved one, it's much more likely you will act in defense of your loved one, right? And the self-defense cover that. It's in defense of yourself or defense of others.
It sounds eerily familiar to this case. And that's some of the rest of the story that the state of South Carolina, for some reason, has chosen not to tell us today. And then we go, duty to retreat, or can you retreat? As a person is pointing a firearm at you and you're pulling backwards and someone is saying, stop, no, don't. That's what duty to retreat is. No one turns and runs. The judge is going to tell you, as I mentioned, as we're talking about self-defense, and I've said it several times, you have a right to act on appearances, and you have a right to be wrong. So as we sit here and we're in Rick Chow's position, we're wondering what Rick Chow is doing. As we've heard this testimony, Rick Chow sees a gun pointed at his son. His son says, as you heard, I was afraid, I was terrified. He's got a gun, he's got a gun. So Rick Chow in that situation stands in the place of his son. This case is not about a dollar. This case is not about a shoplifter. This case is about a father who sees a gun pointed at his son and had to make a decision.
Yep. And a split-second decision too, which is really unfortunate.
I hate it. I do. I hate that a young man lost his life. I disagree with the state's theory on it's not that big of a deal that kids are going around with guns. I hate it. It is a problem. And it is a problem in this case. I hate that we have sat here and tried to make this about something that's not. I've listened to the state of South Carolina's opening statement talk about Cyrus's age, his future, and I understand all of that. I do. The one thing that does not know Cyrus's age is that gun. The gun doesn't know how old he is. When a gun is pointed at somebody, you have an option. As we sit here and talk about this case and how important the details are, that if you step back and look at something one way, it's completely different. And as you get closer and you look at it more and you look at all of the details, you'll never see it differently again. And so what I'm asking you to do is focus on the details. I wear this suit all the time in trials. People say, oh, you always dress so flashy, but you're not flashy. I wear this suit all the time because it reminds me that details are the most important thing that can happen. It actually has my name and the pinstripes in it, because when you look at it, after realizing it's not just a pinstripe suit, it actually has my name just right down the middle. And I look at it and it reminds me in cases that if you don't take your step back and look at things in full detail, you will miss it, like the state of South Carolina has, and they want you to miss it. We have to focus on important matters. We have to see the full story. You have to ask yourself the question, why don't they want me to know the full story? And then finally,
what a goat.
For the state's case to make any sense whatsoever,
I think that's the end of the video I want to show. This is the little video I want to show here. Well, let's show the eyewitness, right? There's a little bit of things here that I find is really interesting. I listened to all of them. And this is where one eyewitness was interacting with Mr. Kent about the gun problem in the community.
Guns, because it's a status question about guns. Yeah. Do you prefer Mr. Bryant, Devontae? What do you want to be called? I'm going to give you a proper title.
Either or.
Okay, is it fine if I call you Mr. Bryant?
Yeah.
Mr. Bryant, I want to go through first the testimony that you offered the state of South Carolina just a few moments ago. Do you remember what you testified to?
Yeah.
And I want to first start at the beginning part of your testimony that you were giving to the jury when they were asking you questions about guns. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And when they were asking you questions about guns, they were asking you about the prevalence and the amount of guns in the community of children, 14-year-olds and so forth. Remember those questions?
Yeah.
And do you remember saying that it was basically normal that a lot of kids have guns?
Yeah.
And it is okay for them to have guns because it's a status or something of that nature, right?
I'm not saying okay, but
It's not okay, is it?
yeah.
It's not okay?
I didn't say that it was okay for a child to have a gun. I never said that.
And then let me follow that up with that question. It's not okay, is it?
I mean, it depends on what point you're coming from.
He's lost.
Please explain. What point would make it okay for somebody under the...
He thinks this is a trap. It's not really a trap, but it kind of is a trap. And he knows the trap, and he doesn't want to say stuff that's bad for the prosecutor, for Cyrus, right? Because it's a Cyrus witness, Cyrus family's witness. So, but he knows it's a problem, and then he also doesn't know how to lie about this because he's on the stand, under oath, and have to say the truth.
Age of 15 to possess a firearm.
I mean, I wouldn't know.
Well, you do know. You just said it depends. So let the jury know, based upon the questions from the state and your answer, when is it okay for someone under the age of 14 or a child to have a gun?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, everybody had their own viewpoint of it. That's why I say it depends.
And I'm asking your viewpoint, based upon your testimony, based upon what you've offered to this jury, when is it okay?
I mean, protection-wise, if you ask me.
Go on, please. I did ask you.
That's it.
What do you mean protection-wise?
Depending on the area you grew up in or the areas you stay in, maybe.
And so when the state of South Carolina put you on the stand, they understood that you felt it was okay to break the law for protection.
Objection to the question.
I'm referring.
All right, we're ready.
It is your testimony that it is okay to break the law for protection purposes.
No, I'm not saying. I never once said that.
Okay, tell me what you said. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I don't remember, but I didn't say that.
No, you just said it a few seconds ago, that it would be okay for protection purposes for someone under the age of 14 to have a firearm. Is that what you just said?
That's what I said.
Is it legal for someone under the age of 14 to have a firearm?
No.
So would it be breaking the law for a person under 14 to have a firearm?
Yeah.
And so would your testimony not have just been, it is okay for someone under the age of 14 to break the law for protection? Isn't that your testimony?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
That's it, bro. That's all I want to show. He's so good. Mr. Ken is so good. Like, if you ever need a defense lawyer, this is the guy. But I do want to say that this little this little exchange showed a very broad problem about what I wanted to share, right? Which is I think the culprit of this entire incident, entire tragedy, right? Which is the state. What is happening, right? Why does a 14-year-old or a bunch of 14-year-olds feel like they are in the need from the eyewitness testimony, right? Oh, they feel like, it's not about cool or not cool. It's about protection. Even though it's illegal, I should have a firearm. Why does the kids, 14-year-old, feel like they need to protect themselves with a gun? Then what is the community leader doing? What are the people who are there supposed to protect the community doing? Like, what are they doing? Why is it ever cool or allowed? Like, that's the real problem that I want to talk about for this issue. It's never about Rick Chow, Cyrus, even though it's a really sad situation. But I think the bigger issue is that community. You guys should actually go talk to your local church leaders, your community leaders, and figure this shit out, bro. It's so unfortunate, and it's so pathetic that this is plaguing your community, because it is. It's so sad. But here is a verdict, right? I don't want to play the verdict.
07440. State of South Carolina, County of Richland versus Cici Rick Chow. We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant Chi Rick Chow as to the charge of murder, not guilty. Signed number 302, foreperson, June the 1st, 2026. Madam Forelady, was this your verdict and the verdict of the entire jury?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
That's the entire jury's verdict, right? You can see the frustration, the entire devastation on the family of Cyrus. They're sad,
257.
and you can totally understand that. They just lost their kid, 14-year-old, and he looked like a really nice kid too. I would say, in the wrong place at the wrong time, made a mistake. And then, like I said, this society is not fair. Like where we grew up, it wasn't fair. Most of you guys grew up, I think you probably had the starting point. Most American starting point is better than a lot of the Chinese kids. I grew up in a very small area. The society is not fair, and he just made a mistake in this very unfair society that is sadly irreversible, right? That's the best way I can put it, because it's so tragic that a kid has to die. But is it Rick Chow's fault? We don't know. The thing is, you will never know the exact truth, but it sounds hella logical based on all the evidence that we've seen so far that this is another clear as daylight is a self-defense case. And this guy have already served 3 years in prison for no reason, right? I mean, think about the other case where you have Karmelo Anthony, who admitted that he killed somebody, and he is able to stay home before the actual court for a whole year, right? Eating whatever he wants, sleeping in comfortable bed, staying home, having access to everything he wanted. Where Rick Chow, he's in prison for 3 years before this court. I mean, that's the difference, right? Like, it's apparently there was not even enough evidence to say this was just a murder, but he was charged as murder and stayed in prison for 3 years, and now he was acquitted. So I actually want to find out exactly like what if you're acquitted and you already served 3 years in prison, like what is the let's actually just ask. Oh, what the hell? Oh, that's a different.
I remember
different video, but let's ask. So is Rick Chow paid, well, I don't know the right word, for his 3 years in prison now that he is acquitted? Let's ask, right? And see what the AI says. Because I don't know the law, but we can just see the results. No, Rick Chow is not automatically paid or compensated by the state for the 3 years he spent in jail awaiting trial. South Carolina has no functional wrongful conviction compensation law that applies to the situation. So this guy is just incarcerated for no reason, and now is acquitted. He was never convicted, only charged and held pre-trial. Most U.S. compensation statutes require an actual conviction followed by exoneration, right? So acquittal at a trial does not trigger automatic state payments. Then he was in jail, though. How does that work? Rick Chow does not get paid for his time in jail under current South Carolina law. The legal team has not publicly claimed any compensation is forthcoming. The main financial pressure now appears to be defending against the ongoing civil case. I mean, the state messed up big time, right? They convicted the wrong person, and then also at the same time they failed a young black family. They failed the kid. They failed the family, right? It's just like every way you look at it is really sad. And I want to show this is the entire closing statement, the verdict delivery. And again, my thoughts and what I want to focus on for everyone watching is not the case itself. It's really just the society that we're in, right? That the environment that this is somehow allowed or encouraged or it's cool. This kids, this type of behavior, the community need to really think about, right? It's why our kids at 14-year-old, the community leaders need to start going on social media and look at these things instead of just be ignorant about it. It's actually your duty to know these things. Like, why are kids holding firearms, showing off on the social media the night before this type of incident and resulting in death, and you don't even know about it, right? Like, what kind of age are you living in? You don't live in 1950s anymore. This is 2026. Okay, let's take a look at some scenarios of now. By the way, the reason why I heard about this initially is there was quite a bit of viral content related to when I was researching for Karmelo Anthony, but I didn't go into it. I just knew like a lot of people were harassing Chinese restaurants. A lot of black people were harassing Chinese restaurants over this case, over this verdict. And you heard the closing statement. I hope anyone can think about this objectively from a common sense standpoint. What would you have done if you're in Rick Chow's case, right? Like it's as common sense as that. So this is some people just harassing Chinese restaurant. Watch.
Sisters and brothers, it's that time again. So we boycotting Chinese food now because if somebody can kill one of us and get away with it, nah, baby, the support is real. I'm boycotting Chinese food. How about you?
Watch this, by the way. This is more disgusting.
Help you? Yes, can I order? I would like an order for pickup.
Okay, what would you like?
I would like 5 of your sesame chicken and orange chicken with lo mein dinners.
You want orange chicken, sesame chicken?
Yes.
3 minutes call.
Orange chicken, one of the sesame chicken?
Yes. Well, I want sesame chicken and orange chicken. And okay.
This is just vigilante justice with no support, not understanding the actual case. Is what I call monkey behavior, right? Like now you understand the case. For this person looking at it, think about what you did. Like what did the business in your neighborhood are providing a service for your neighborhood, making it not likely to do business there. It's only going to hurt your own community. And that's the broader cultural impact, right? For this whole thing, you know? Like Chinese in America has always been like, I would say, not discriminated against, but always in a disadvantageous position. Because Chinese culture is very focused on education, hard work, and then endurance of pain. I've talked about this many different times in our videos. Like Chinese people don't even join politics. When there's suffering, when there's pain, they just endure it and focus their attention on the next generation, focus on the attention on the study, on the hard work, and making money, right? They know like the only way to get out of the system is to beat it, right? It's like not to complain about it. It's not going to help. The politics are never going to help. Everybody who in the system understand that no matter how much you complain, nothing's going to change. The only way that's going to change for your life is you beat it, right? And that's what Chinese believe. And these guys just keep on harassing. I remember during 2022, when you remember like the Asian hate thing, it was real, right? Like I experienced it myself when I go to the store. We got like side-eyed, right? Like just because I was wearing a mask. Nobody was wearing a mask, I was wearing a mask. I was in Whole Foods and people looked at me funny. Yeah, doesn't matter. Did I care? I don't. Like when I graduated, I couldn't find an internship. I was the top 5% of my class from UT Austin. I couldn't get a single interview. I have to change my name. You guys know me as Dave? My name is not Dave, right? But I couldn't find an interview with my Chinese name on it, on the resume. You think I cared? I changed my name to Dave. That's how I got my English name as Dave. That's literally how it was. That's a difference in thinking process of a culture. That's a cultural difference in thinking process. Like I hope this is a discussion more about cultural differences and where we can find common ground. Instead of go around and harassing people, thinking like you're doing justice. This is a clown. This is clown world. This is literally clown world. This is stupid. Like retarded maximum, right? Like if there's a word to describe it in a Marvel sense, that's literally what it is, right? And by the way, this is Stephen Smith, a guy. I listen to him quite often. He's now getting more into politics. I think he's a sports commentator. And then this is what he had to say about Karmelo Anthony's case, right? Because this touch up to the Karmelo Anthony, because that's mostly where it started. I didn't want to talk about Rick Chow's case. I wasn't interested. I just knew there are people harassing Chinese restaurants. But this is what he had to say.
Anything.
And by the way, he's very liberal, right? Like he's very, very liberal in leaning. He's pro-black community. He has supported black community. Like I think every time I want to listen to debates, he has fun debates, right? And then his debates, by the way, I love the community vibes from the community vibe from black community is really, really cool. And a lot of people love it, me included. I think it's really fun and then it's really engaging. And he does a lot of debates I listen to as well. I might do some content about it too. Like listen to his I would say not reaction, his thoughts on Karmelo Anthony.
To be able to say something definitively in Karmelo Anthony's defense. If there was a shred of innocence to the incident itself, I would say so. I don't want to see a little black young man going to jail. But I don't give a damn what your race. I don't give a damn about what your race, your ethnicity is. Just because you're white and young doesn't mean you deserve to be murdered. And just because you're black and young with challenges that black folks face every single day doesn't give you a license to murder someone.
There you go. There you go. That's what, like, I think the community or the people who are causing trouble need to stop thinking this from a tribal perspective, because it's so sad. We're all American and we all live in the same country. And like, nobody want to get into, like, I'm not interested in politics at all. I'm interested in politics from an observer standpoint. It's fun, but I'm not affiliated with any party and I don't want to, right? Everybody, you either earn my vote from actual substances, stuff that changed my life. You know, if you actually do stuff that affects our livelihood for the better, right? Affect the stock market, affect the safety of the neighborhood, you know, when I go into New York, when I go into LA, I see a city that's actually livable. I'm proud. Oh my God, I want to come back again. This is insane. That's actually inspiring, you know, then good, right? I don't really care about politics because I don't know about you guys, but all the politicians, when they talk about all the kind of grandeur stuff, none of them actually do anything. I mean, I just don't care. I thought it was funny that they shit talk each other, but most of it just shit talk. It doesn't do anything to your life, so who cares? By the way, I want to share this this Elon Musk tweeting this statistic. Last year, by Kevin Bass, DOJ published a report for every 10,000 blacks, 153 violent crimes are committed by a black person each year against a white person. This is between black and white, right? And then the same figures for violent crimes committed by whites against blacks is 3.4. So that's a statistic, right? I mean, that's a crime statistic. And then Elon Musk tweeted, the truth is there are vastly more hate crimes, especially aggravated rape, murder per person by blacks against whites than the other way around. This is not remotely debatable as the numbers are so extremely lopsided. You know, like, but here's the thing though. I want to speak on devil's advocate for a second, because I listened to, like, when you look at numbers, let me put it this way. Let me put it in perspective, right? When you look at numbers, it's hard not to be objective and be like, yo, what is going on in the black neighborhood, right? Like, why is there so much violence? But at the same time, I listened to a professor. I don't know his name, but I love the professor. So I think it's this guy, yeah. I watch the lesson SOC 119 all the time. And here he played a video for a kid from a black person, like that happened to a black family, a black kid. And he played it in a class to a lot of people, to a lot of young students, to see how they react to it. And I cannot explain it better than he does. So I want to share this little clip with you guys so you guys can take a look.
Happened. And the police aren't really refuting it. So we're going to watch, so turn your chair around and watch this video.
All right, he has a whole class, I don't know, hundreds, not close to 1,000 students watching this video. Watch.
I was coming back from the Wood and Nickel to get my dad a Father's Day gift. They were closed, it was Sunday, so I decided to turn back around and head home. It was about 103 degrees. I had 3 water bottles in my backpack, and I stopped right behind me, right by the sign, to take a sip, and then I turned around and there were 3 cop cars. And one of the officers already had a gun drawn at me. They asked me, was I inside the store? And I told them no. And then they asked me if I was sure. And I was like, yeah. I turned to another officer who was in front of me, Officer Vasquez. And I told him, I said, sir, what's going on? And then he was like, give me the backpack. And then I was like, do you have a warrant? And then he pointed behind me. Which is a good question, by the way. And he said, look. So I looked behind me, and it was a big canine dog. And then I got scared, and then I was like, here, just take the backpack, just take the backpack. And then after that, he grabbed me by my wrist like this, and then he grabbed me by my neck, punched me, and then he threw me onto the ground, and then that's when the canine came and started eating at my leg. They rode me around. Officer Vasquez put his knee in my back, and I told him I couldn't breathe, and then he put his other knee in my head, and I told him I can't breathe, and then I started yelling out, somebody help me, they're gonna kill me. And then finally, he let me up, he tied my hands behind my back, and then he tied my feet together, and he threw me in the back of the car. And on my way going back to the car, I heard somebody say, that's not the guy.
Well, she actually called while she was in the hospital, and I thought she was joking because she was like, Mom, I'm in the hospital, the police beat me, and a dog bit me.
I was like, wow. I'm like, let me talk to the officer. And so the officer got on the phone, and I asked him what happened, and he told me that it was mistaken identity. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, is she okay? And he was like, well, she's alive, and she's in the hospital.
My daughter is a very responsible young lady. She works, she loves life. There was no reason for this to happen to her.
They never told me why they stopped me, but after they beat me and threw me in the cop car, that's when they told.
Police had actually caught the guy.
So I want to show you like the injury that happened to her because of this accident, right?
It had the machetes, and that's what's a shame. I don't know for sure, but the guy probably didn't have a scratch on him.
He still tried to handcuff me and flip me over while the dog was still biting me, and I'm yelling out like, I didn't do anything, I'm a female, like, why are you doing this to me?
Why should my daughter be charged with a crime? All she did was stop to drink some water because it was 100 and something degrees. That's ridiculous.
We gotta find a way not to let this kind of thing happen ever.
And then
for you to be the
I want to listen to what the professor had to say about this, and because I think it's so epic. I was listening to this when I was walking on a trail, and then by the way, if you want to follow my trail reviews, I do full 2-hour, 3-hour trail walks to show you the full trail in Austin, Houston, Dallas area when I walk around. But I listen to this type of stuff, right? Or some educational class on AI and whatnot. You listen to this and you get a perspective why there's so much. Why, like, you can get a perspective, understand why Black community has a lot of resistance going on, right, against the police and all that kind of stuff.
These guys. If this happened to you, if that was your sister, or your mother, or your neighbor, or your girlfriend, what more would it take for you to be these guys? Talk into the mic. Talk into the mic.
Well, like, I don't know the situation, like, if it happened to me, like, how I would react. But I feel like it's more like a community thing.
It's more what?
Like a community thing. Let's say something happens to me and someone...
This would radicalize me, right? If my sister was on the line and my sister got this type of treatment, this would radicalize me, Like, this is not good.
It's like, same like me
how the police treated her.
Thing, it's keep happening to them.
Yeah.
Like, we will, like, get together and try to solve this.
Yeah. Well, at what time would you just throw your hands up? At what point and just say no and be on the streets protesting? Like, at what point? Like, how many times would it have to happen?
I wouldn't know, Taz. Like,
dudes, can I just ask you all? Let me ask everybody the same question. You see this? I found that video quickly. I can get like. I can find videos like this all over the internet. I mean, people getting killed doesn't happen a lot, but people getting beat up by the police happens a fair amount, and it's much more likely to happen to Black and brown people than it is, including dark-skinned Panamanians, than light-skinned Panamanians. So it doesn't take long, and even if it doesn't happen a lot, it does. Even if it doesn't, how many videos does it take to watch to be afraid enough to say, no, I'm going in the streets, like one more time? Like, how many times would it have to happen? Look at this young girl who's like nothing. The fact in some ways that we could watch that video and we all don't go out into the streets, black, white, and brown, really maybe says something about our characters. Like, why aren't we all going out there and saying, no, this is unacceptable? It's absolutely unacceptable.
It absolutely is.
It doesn't take much. And listen, man, dudes, this is especially for white people, okay? Every person of color watches these videos, Every person of color gets the videos passed around. They might not come into your inbox, but they come into other people's inboxes, dude. And they come into the inboxes because it's about protection. It's like, listen, look at this happen. And so maybe I'm not interested in what the police are doing, but other people are interested in what the...
So that's the only clip, that's a part of the clip I want to show. And the reason why is that it's easy to look at the statistic here and then say, okay, well, why are black community committing so much crime? But it's also at the same time, you have to think on the other shoe, right? I don't want to only look at one side of the story because what the professor said is so true, where yes, statistically, that doesn't happen very often, right? You know, like actually white police shooting black people, like it's just statistically it's not true, right? It's like 1 in a like 0.06 in a million case, or 0.6 case in a million, something like that. The chance is so low, but that one case that happened, it gets spreaded within the black community like a wildfire. Everybody's seen it on the video. Everybody's looking at it. It radicalized me when I look at it, right? Like that video is crazy, and it did happen to an innocent young girl. Like how can that not radicalize anyone who look at it? That's the issue, right? From an outsider standpoint, you can totally understand why the community is mad or pissed off. Even though it doesn't happen very often, it happened once, to a lot of people is too much, you know? So the reason why I want to bring this up is the bigger problem that I see here is it's a cultural issue. That's number one. Number two is the community need to demand the city, the people representative, the people who represent you guys, to do stuff. Like to actually do stuff. Stop voting the same people in. Like I just don't understand. This is where I'm just so lost, because I don't believe any one of us are sheep. I think we're all independent thinking human beings. And from an outsider standpoint, someone who learned about American democracy, I don't see it in action. I look at you guys and I'm like, yo, bro, like not call the police. Vote these clowns out, right? Vote these clowns out. Like, why are they still in power? You have these people ruling, like, look at Chicago. You have all these people ruling your city for I don't know how many years. You know what? Let me take a look. How long has Karen Bass been the mayor of LA? All right, let's just ask. I don't even know if Chicago's mayor have changed, but we can ask too. Karen Bass has been the mayor of Los Angeles since December 12, 2022. Who was the mayor before, and were they the same political party? We can ask, right? Anything. This is a very simple index. You can ask AI to give you a really good answer. Mayor of Los Angeles immediately before Karen Bass was Eric. Eric served as 42nd mayor, and then Karen Bass succeeded him. Both are Democrats, right? Blah, blah, blah. Los Angeles has been led by the Democrat Party for decades, so there was no party change between blah, blah, blah. Dude, look at this. I hope this is an issue for you. I really do. I hope you look at this and you think independently, like, this is actually a fucking issue. Like, we've been voting these clowns in for decades. And look at your city. What about Chicago? Has, does the city has different political leaning mayors? Excuse my English, but you know what it means, right? Basically, does the city have different mayors from different political parties? Let's take a look. Mayor has not had meaningful different political leaning among its mayors for nearly a century. The city is one of the strongest Democratic strongholds in the U.S. By the way, look at your city, bro. Like, it's so sad. I'm in esports, and I had an esports team. One of the esports team I had a teammate, really nice kid, and he's a black kid. His name is Jalen. And then he lives in Chicago. There's one time we were playing a game together, right? And I heard gunshot. Like literally on stream. I forgot this was a long time, 8 years ago. Dude, it was so scary. It happened live, right? And then so he didn't play after that. But what happened was, luckily it didn't affect him. It was just outside of his door. The fact that you have an active PvP server, active war zone outside of your door is unacceptable in modern society of America, right? Like, it's unacceptable. Yet, You got the same party political leaders leading the city for a whole century, and you guys just keep on voting for it. So whose fault is? I actually blame you guys, right, for making this happen, because this is sheep mentality. This is actually stuff that is your fault. If you're saying this is not your fault, we actually didn't want this to happen, we didn't vote this guy, then it's fraud, right? So it's one way or the other. You pick the demon. That's what I'm saying, because this does not make any sense. Like the fact that these communities are just plagued with crime, and then they just keep on happening, and nothing's happening to the people who are in charge. And you guys just kept on letting it happen, and you vandalize somehow the merchant, somehow the businesses in the community who are serving the community, and you thought that was a good idea. I don't know what kind of genius came up with that idea. Like, it's the people who are leading this type of pack, this type of campaigns, need to be actually taken to jail and be publicly shamed. It's a shame to the community. They brought shame to your community. They brought shame to the modern society. They're ashamed. And then the people who keep on voting for these people, voting for these political clowns, I think you guys need to really think about, like, yeah, they're a sweet talker. Yes, they keep on promising this stuff. Has it ever happened though? Like, is the city getting better? Everybody knows in the world Chicago is a war zone. People in China know Chicago is a war zone. Nobody want to go to Chicago anymore. This shit city. It's a good place for food, I heard. Jesus. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Like the thing that I want to bring up is just that I understand why you see, if you just look at statistic, I understand why there is so much, bias. But at the same time, you should understand from the community perspective why there's so much pushback. It's hard for us to judge someone, when you're not inside the community. Like, again, I was reading my book, The Psychology of Money. In the first chapter, it was just saying that you don't know the other side story, and you should never judge people because you don't know their story. And we don't, right? We should look at the case as it is, or look at the facts, and you can, because you don't know their story, you cannot judge by the story. You can only judge a case by the facts of the case. That's why both cases, I think, got the correct verdict. It's as clear as daylight. And Mr. Rick Chow served in the prison for 3 years for nothing, and he didn't even get compensated for, the judgment, apparently, because in South Carolina, there's nothing. By the way, I do want to mention here, this type of post that said this is why Americans are getting fooked. I don't agree with the sentiment, but I want to say something, right? Look at all the CEOs: Google, Microsoft, YouTube, Adobe, bunch of other companies, right? Bunch of other companies. I think like some companies that I probably use is probably T-Mobile, right? They're all Indians. I use all the everything I mentioned. I use their services. Stuff that I didn't mention, like IBM, whatever. I don't use their services. But everything I mentioned, I use their services. Procter & Gamble. All the CEOs are Indians, and Indians come from the poorest area on the planet, right? Like, I don't know if Africa's worse or India's worse, but India's so poor, right? Like, and you look at all the CEOs. You're telling me that we live in supposedly the greatest nation in the world, and there's not enough black leaders or Asian leaders, and you just keep on blaming the system. How about think about the cultural? Is there anything that's actually cultural, something that we should fix from a local community standpoint, right? Is there anything that we should think about from a local community standpoint? Is there any self-accountability that we should take? Those are all great questions, because if you look at like these facts that don't change, which is all these communities, the Indian communities, Asian communities, Chinese communities, pulled ourselves from the darkest shithole, right? Like literally the poorest areas. And look at China now, right? Look at where China is now. Develop into the superpower of the world. Probably Ray Dalio would call it the next superpower, replacing America. I don't know about that, but that's what Ray Dalio is saying, right? One of the richest VC, one of the richest money manager in the world, most successful one. That's what they're saying. That's what they notice as a trend. I think if you look at that and really think, from a common sense standpoint, it's something that more of a community thing, right? But that's my take on this case, because you guys asked for it and they want me to react to this. Like I said, this is a clown world. This is literally clown world, right? And then this entire thing, I hope you guys go talk to your community leaders and vote them out, right? Or just talk to your community and vote the politicians out. Change the flavor a little bit, right? If all these politicians you guys currently have representing you are not doing shit, not doing nothing for you guys, vote them out. Change the flavor. Change something. Actually, listen to the politicians. Give them a chance if they're talking about the community and try to fix it. If their action align with their words, keep them in, right? That's my take on it. What's your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. Dave signing off.